Morning, and by the way, I had the great pleasure of corralling you, being the bad cop, and now I'm going to get to be the good cop for a few minutes, and at some point I'll be the bad cop again because I'm going to keep this thing on target and on time for all of you. For those that don't know me, and I know many of you in the room, my name is Matt Holt. I'm a Hunterdon County freeholder. I'm the longest serving freeholder at this point in Hunterdon County. If I choose to run again in 2018, it'll be for my 5th term in Hunterdon County. Never thought that would ever happen. My wife, certainly Megan in the front row, never ever thought that would happen, although I often tell the story about how I ended up being a freeholder, essentially having closed out a term as mayor in the town of Clinton after 10 years. I was home for 3 months, and she looked at me one evening and said, "You need to go run for something, so get out the door because you're home too much." But I have the great pleasure of doing that. I've had the real honor of in 2008, joining NJTPA, and certainly walked in the door on the 1st of January or somewhere thereabouts for our first reorg meeting, having no idea what NJTPA stood for, let alone what it did or what was involved. And it doesn't take very long when you get here to drink the Kool-Aid. And the bottom line is that it's critical. And what's been so interesting for me over the 9 years, and I look and say that next year I started a decade here, is watching sort of the transformation and yet still coming back to one of the cores, which is transportation and how that ties to us. But the ability of this organization to move us from simply transportation to all of the other components, and most especially one of our topics today, which is thinking regionally. I'm excited to see a lot of people here. The bottom line is that, you know, you're all here probably because of topic. I would say that probably Mitchell Silver, brings a lot of people here. Dean Hughes always brings a lot of people here. This is the largest registration we've ever had. I will say the second largest registration was back a few years ago when we did a seminar on the FAST Act and MAP 21 of federal funding. I think there's a direct correlation with the fact that I happen to moderate both of those.
I think so too.
I'm not saying that. I mean, I just want you to assume that, but I think there's something to be said for that. But what's critical is that we're here today to figure out what it means to be a region. We're here today to think about those 4 components. How do we make our region more competitive? How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it more livable? How do we make it more resilient? It's a region. And we're going to obviously take a look at how transportation plays a role in achieving those goals. And as I mentioned, I've been here for 9 years. But through that process, you begin to understand and believe seriously about the power of regional planning, the power of regional thinking. Tom DeGeese and I, great friend of Freeholder Palmer's and mine, who's the county executive from Hudson County. We often joke about the fact that our 2 counties are connected by a highway, Route 78, but at the same time, very, very different components, very different counties, very different look to them, and yet what happens in Hunterdon affects Hudson, and what happens in Hudson affects Hunterdon County. And that is why we have to begin to think on a regional basis. We're not just a collection of 13 counties. We're not just a collection of hundreds of municipalities. And if we're going to compete with other regions across the country, and by the way, I serve as the District 2 representative for the National Association of Regional Councils, which represents 4 states. And the National Association of Regional Councils has a membership of about 400 MPOs and COGs from around the country who are all looking at this. But if we're going to compete around the country, and certainly even within our own state, but certainly around the country, we have to think regionally. And I want to point to something that I think is so critical. I come here every single month for whether it's a committee meeting or a board meeting. And I look around the dais, and typically our transportation partners are here, and our board sits here, and our staff is here. One of the first things that you learn and you are preached when you get here, and it's ingrained in you, is that we are nonpartisan here, folks. We don't care what party you're from. As a matter of fact, we don't really even know when we first get here. We are here to work as a region. We are here to plan and to do what is in the best interest of North Jersey, that we hope eventually spreads to South Jersey and beyond, because this is how we're going to make this region economically viable. We're going to make it competitive, efficient, livable, and resilient. And the fact that you're all here means you're drinking the Kool-Aid too, and when you get done today with my comments as well as our speakers, I hope that you will go out and spread that to all of your circles of influence, because that's how we're going to eventually make this happen.